Hey everyone, so don't be freaked out by my crazy eyes. This is just because of the tutorial I've just filmed for you. It's about blending eyeshadow and a few different methods and how to apply the products and how to blend. And I just did two different examples of blending, and you can see how different your eyes can look actually depending on eyeshadow placement, which I'll probably go into again. But yeah, so kind of like I did with the eyeliner tutorial, I did different on both eyes. This shows cream eyeshadow as well as powder, and then this is just powder. So this is something that gets asked quite a lot, is blending, because blending is so important to makeup application, especially eyeshadows. And I'm sure you've heard that silly saying blend 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 a million times before, and it's so true. And even I say it, even though I feel like a plonker saying it, but it's so true. Blend blend blend. And anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Hope it's helpful to some of you, and let me know what you think as always. And of course, subscribe if you haven't before and you are enjoying the videos, or if you find them helpful. So okay, so first things first, kind of if you're not really used to blending, or if you definitely need to practice a bit more and you have to allow for a bit of mess, I would advise either A, doing your eyes all together before you do your foundation and your concealer and stuff. That way, if there is any like powder and stuff falling down on your cheek area, or I mean it goes everywhere on me sometimes, like my nose, anywhere, so you can just really easily wipe that away with like a baby wipe, and re-moisturize if necessary, and then just apply your foundation afterwards. That way you're not messing up your foundation. What I would advise against completely is doing your foundation and powdering before you do your eyes, because if you get a lot of fallout over like powdered foundation, it's really hard to wipe it away, and if you wipe it away you're going to ruin the whole base, and it's so hard to reblend over a powdered base. So either just do your foundation after your eyes, or if you want you can do your foundation first but don't powder. So I've done that now, and then say later when I clean up any fallout, I can just clean up any away. If there's a bit of foundation left on my brush, I go over the area and that'll kind of fill in any foundation that I've wiped away from cleaning up. Or one other thing you can do, which is a bit finicky but it's just an option, some people find that if they do their eyes first, they find it very hard to blend the eyeshadow close enough into the eyeshadow so that it doesn't actually ruin the, say, the the outskirts of the blended eyeshadow. So what you could do then is do your like foundation down to this area, because you really don't get any fallout above, like say here. You could do your foundation down to here and blend, and that way, and powder, and that way when you blend you can get you can blend up as far as you want, and you don't have to worry about adding any foundation or whatever afterwards. So with that out of the way, once you've decided how you're going to kind of tackle that, I would advise definitely using a primer under any kind of eye products. I just find that it just makes everything last longer, helps prevent creasing. Most people know what the primers are for. There's plenty of good ones out there. At the moment I'm trying out the BH Cosmetics one, which was sent to me, but I actually really quite like it. I really like these ones that are kind of tinted, so they're almost like a concealer and a primer. And the reason I like that is I kind of like to put, say, concealer over my eyelids myself, but I won't say very dry eyelids, but I don't have in any way any kind of grease or oil on my eyelids, so I don't really crease. But most people crease a little bit from putting concealer and say foundation on their eyelids. So go ahead and just get some primer and then apply that. And the colourless ones are grand, but if you want to use like a really pale eyeshadow colour, I kind of like to use these ones that are actually going to cover up some of the discoloration on your eyelids, because most people will have discoloration on their eyelids. So I'm just going to pop that from the inner corner and then from the lash line right up to the brow. And I'll do this regardless of whether I'm using cream or powder eyeshadow. So mostly these are sticky when you first put them on, and then if you just leave them for like a minute or so, they'll set, so they're not going to be too sticky. So obviously if you want to grab onto eyeshadow, apply it before the base kind of sets, so that it kind of sticks onto it. And then if you want a bit more of an easy blend, allow it to set so it's not going to be quite so tacky. Okay, so once you have your primer on and you're kind of ready to rock and roll with your eyeshadows, I'm going to show you how I'd apply like cream eyeshadow and blend it out. So when I say cream eyeshadow, I mean like any kind of grease paint or cream eyeshadow, or even like cream eyeliners, which you can, as long as you work fairly quick with, you can use as a cream eyeshadow. So any of those kind of wet products. I'm going to show you using one of my paint pots. This is a pretty old paint pot. I don't think they even do it anymore. It's called Rollickin, and it's this really cool kind of I don't know, turquoisey green colour. So I either apply this with my finger or with a synthetic brush. When it's on myself, I usually just use a finger, and I, almost like the same way I would with a brush, I kind of pack it on or pat it on. You can kind of blend, you can almost blend with your finger a lot of the times as you go along. And you want the colour to be most intense on the actual lid. Yeah, so you want the colour to be most intense on the like moving part of the lid or the lower part of your lid. And then just pack it on. Now I do go a little bit above the crease because you don't want to blend out the colour that's on the moving part of the lid, because you want to keep that as intense as possible. So you want to extend it up a little bit. Okay, there you go. So it's up to you how high obviously you want to go. So I'm going to bring this a little bit higher because I know I'm going to blend this out. And the thing with cream eyeshadows, depending on how quick they dry, you're going to have to do the blending fairly nifty, so that you're not blending over dry product, because the drier it is, the harder it is to blend it out. So I go in with kind of a stiffish blending brush, something that's just not too overly flimsy. Like say this number 7 one I have is very flimsy. There's no kind of, you know, it has very little strength to it. So that's not going to do much. It's just going to kind of flop back and forth. Whereas this is a Daniel Sandler one, and it is a bit more tightly packed. It has a bit more strength behind it. So just blend out the edge of that. If you want, you can go back in, apply a little bit more product, quickly blend it out a little bit before it dries. So that's really as much as I would do with blending eyeshadows, cream eyeshadows. You can let that dry and just leave it be, or you can, you know, pack eyeshadow on top of it if you want eyeshadow to, you know, grab onto it, like kind of what I was saying about the primer while it's still a bit wet. But yeah, the main thing is to just blend it out fairly quickly. And then if you do end up blending away some of the colour on the, you know, where you wanted it to be more intense, just add a little bit more, pack it back on, and then if you need to blend around the edges, do that again. So next I'm going to show you, I suppose first I'll show you how to blend powder over the cream eyeshadow, and then next I'll show you powder by itself on the eye without a cream base underneath. Okay, so I'm going to go into my new 120 palette just to kind of give it a go, because I haven't had a huge amount of time to play with it yet. And I'll stick with kind of a green colour since the base is green. Okay, so if you want, you can apply the entire colour with a blending brush, but I like to use just a regular, like traditional shader brush like this, just to initially pack on the colour where I want it to be most intense. So doesn't really matter what colour I use, I suppose, and just pack that on. The reason I like to use the traditional shader brushes is A, they're more tightly packed and they will lay down more colour for you, but also B, you can get the colour closer to the lash line, so you have less of a chance of there being any kind of gap between your eyeshadow and lashes. So pack that on as much as you want, and of course the eyeshadows will come out a little bit more intense because you have that cream base on underneath, which wasn't entirely dry. So same with the cream base, I apply it a little bit above the crease and kind of go back and forth, and then You can either go in with a clean blending brush, so I'm just going to use the same one I used for the eyeshadow, and just blend around the edge again. And there's a few different ways. You can just go back and forth like in a windshield wiper motion, which is pretty much what most people call it. Or you can do little circular motions, but it's kind of just easier to go just back and forth and really work that edge. Sometimes it'll take a while. There's no harm in spending time if you have it to make sure it's blended out perfectly. And keep going until you get that blend the way you want it. Now if you're having any kind of trouble getting the line as soft as possible, what I would advise is go into a face powder. This is just my mineralized skin finish. Something translucent, something that's not going to be too colourful, something very close to your own maybe skin colour, and then pick some of that up on the tip of your blending brush, and if you use that to blend out the eyeshadow, it really helps diffuse the line and it gives a really soft blend. And this is a really good tip for a really smoky look where you want it to look like it's going from intense to almost nothing. So that's pretty much blended enough. And then if you wanted to make it look like it's a darker colour blending up, go back into your palette or whatever you're using. I'm just going to pick up a darker colour, like a darker green. It's not dark enough. I'll go into a dark blue just so you can see the contrast. And then you can put the darker colour further down or in the crease or wherever you want to. And you would blend the end of that green, or the blue, the darker colour, below where the blend of the green is. So that the blue blends into the green, which blends into the rest of your skin. And that's, now it's a little bit messy, I don't know if you can see there, but there's a good bit of fallout. Like I said, this is something you have to allow for, so, I mean, you could like hold a bit of a tissue underneath your eye or get like those eyeshadow pads that they have for underneath the eye now, but it's kind of just as easy to do it this way. So that would be how I would blend over, say, cream eyeshadow. Now to blend eyeshadow, you know, where you maybe don't want to have it as intense and you want it to be a bit smoother or whatever, I have the primer, which is great. It's going to stop the oils coming through. It's going to help with, you know, it helps even out the colour, whatever. But what you could do now, because I'm not going to have any kind of cream bases underneath, is I'm going to pick up my powder again. If you want, you can just use like a skin coloured eyeshadow. I often use Blanc Type or Brulee or like by MAC or any of those similar. It doesn't have to be MAC. I have loads of other ones that I quite like. And just apply that the same way I'm going to apply this. So I'm just going to grab a slightly bigger brush. This is the 227 by MAC, and then I'm just applying my powder over the entire eye area. It's invisible, that's the whole point with it. It's just to give that smooth base for the eyeshadow to blend over. And I'll do a slightly different look on this eye, just to show you. So I'm going to go get just a clean shader brush, as the other one is quite dirty. And so I'll just do, say, a light colour over the main part of the eye and then a highlight colour. So it doesn't really matter what you use, just apply a highlight. I like to do the lighter colours first. This way you can use the same brush again without having to clean them off. So there's my highlight just pressed on, and then any kind of light colour for the eyelids. I mean, the colour isn't important, this is just me showing you how to get a few different blends in. Okay, so it doesn't really matter how I apply that. Next, get a blending brush, obviously. I'm going to use one of my All-In Professional ones. This one's tapered, so you can be a little bit more precise in the crease. Something like this, which is a bit fatter, rounder head, you're going to cover a larger area. So this is better for more for blending rather than adding colour, whereas I'm actually going to use this to add colour as well as blend. So I'm just going to go into kind of a lightish brown, whatever one you want, whatever colour you want. And then always lay down the brush first where you want the most colour payoff to be, or the most intensity of colour. It's better to add on than to wipe away, so always go back into your colour with your brush again and add a little bit more if you need to. And then just lay it down, twirl it around a little bit, and then start going back and forth. So when you're doing this kind of blend, it's all about adding colour a little bit at a time and being in complete control of how much product you're applying. So again, add a little bit more, circular motions, and go back and forth. And you probably can't see from there, but if I show you sideways, I don't put too much pressure on the brush. It's not like I'm pressing it in, because that's not allowing the brush to do the work for you. The brush, it's mainly the tip and the ends of the brush that are going to do the best blend. So allow the brush to do the work, and don't put too much pressure on it. Back in and apply a little bit more colour. And just go back and forth really lightly. And you can see there it's started to add colour. And it's really soft, and thanks to the powder being there underneath, it's not like there's any sticky surfaces underneath to really grab onto the powder, so it's not going to be too intense. I can really control how it looks. Add a little bit more. So keep adding until you have the first layer, if there is going to be a few layers, as you want it. So that would be enough for me, just for like a daytime natural enough look. There's no fallout with this, but because I wasn't using loads of like colour, intense colour. So what you could do now is kind of similar to when I had layered two colours on here. I'm going to put a slightly darker colour. So I'll just go into black so you can see it. Get that again just on the tip of the brush. You don't want to be getting colour all over the sides of the brush, because then you have less control over where you apply the colour. And I'm going to put this onto the outer corner again, twirl it around in a circular motion, and then I'm going to do similar how I applied the brown, but I'm just not going to bring it up as high. And then once you have most of the product laid down on the skin and you have very little left on the brush, just use whatever is left on the brush to blend it into the rest of the brown. And that way you get a really nice gradient. And that's the safest way of blending colours into each other, is by only applying a little bit at a time. So let me just, I'll just zoom, so I'm just going to zoom in so you can see that. So it's really natural, but you can see there, you can see the dark colour, which is blended up into the lighter, warmer brown, and then again it's gone up to the highlight, and that's really, really simply, easily done. Didn't take, a couple of minutes. And then at this side you can see the more intense blue is faded up to the green, which pretty much fades to nothing. Again, if you're ever a little bit unhappy with the blend, just go back into your clean blending brush or with your face powder. Just blend back and forth and back and forth. And that's just the safest way of blending, the most kind of the best way of blending, really. Yeah, so I hope this helped anyhow, and that it wasn't too long. I'm going to try and edit it down as much as I can, but it just gives a couple of different examples of how to blend, and if there's any fallout, like I said, that's a different issue, but just wipe it away and clean up with your brush, or else apply your foundation like you would anyhow. And yeah, I hope that helped, guys. So I'll talk to you really soon again for another video, and in the meantime, take care. Slán!